before director Tod Browning and actor Bela Lugosi delivered the 1-2 punch of Dracula and Mark of the Vampire, the pair collaborated on an earlier, lesser-known spooky movie. Browning had already found a home for himself at MGM through the 1920s, with much of his prolific output concerning dark, creepy content. Particular highlights from his silent-era work include The Unholy Three, The Unknown, and West of Zanzibar, all of which starred Lon Chaney. Despite their often sensitive subject matters, from controversial carnival villains to Oedipal relationships, Browning's movies were usually well received and popular at the box office. This made him a key talent in the eyes of the studio. As MGM navigated the perilous shift from silent film to the early talkies era, they needed to rely on trusted talent to make the transition as painless as possible. They also wanted to capitalize on the new dimensions afforded by the invention of sound cinema, such as plot lines that get their excitement not from the likes of Chaney's monstrous appearances, but from dialogue-heavy scripts. The subgenre of old dark house movies was the ideal candidate, having already been proven as profitable ventures during the silent era, with hits such as The Bat and The Cat and the Canary. However, with the addition of sound, the frequent shocking plot twists and reveals could flow more naturally, no longer stilted by the stop-start nature of dialogue cards. They were also largely contained in one minimal location, keeping production under control while operating this strange new equipment. When taking all of that into account, and given that these films adopted a sinister tone, Tod Browning was a natural fit for MGM's next project. In 1929, they produced and released The 13th Chair. It was based on a play of the same name, and had already enjoyed a silent adaptation back in 1919. It remained a moderately popular story, a whodunit investigation fraught with murder and mysticism. One might expect Browning's favoured star, Chaney, to be involved in such a plot, but the veteran actor was not cast. Maybe this was due to the 13th Chair being a more grounded, less flashy vehicle, with not much room for Chaney to choose scenery. The role that might usually be fitting for him, the oddball spiritualist, was a woman, so not quite ideal for him. Other reports imply he wasn't ready to make the leap to sound, so instead accepted a role in Thunder, a melodrama with no audible dialogue, but suffered a troubled production that directly contributed to the actor's untimely death. But that's a whole nother story. Besides the quirky medium, the next flashiest character available in the 13th Chair is the investigating officer brought in to solve the deadly crimes. Enter Bela Lugosi. By this point, the actor had firmly crafted a stage career, following the long-running nationwide theatre show of Dracula. When the tour brought him to the West Coast, he wisely attempted to ride this wave into the land of cinema. Despite various on-screen roles prior to his stage run as the famous vampire, none of those movies or performances really made a splash, so now was his chance to earn some more meaty parts. But what of the 13th Chair itself? Is it a notable movie in the careers of Browning and Lugosi? The plot, in both its setup and development throughout, is fairly par for the course for an old dark house mystery. Fear not, I know it's a more obscure movie, and the enjoyment of these largely hinge on the many climactic reveals, so I will not spoil any late-stage business. It opens in Calcutta, India, during its later period of British rule. A man, Spencer Lee, has been murdered. Details of the victim are kept vague, but multiple characters refer to him using the most vile word in British vocabulary: a rotter.
Rotter.
Consequently, most of the community have little interest in solving the crime.
Oh, I hope they never find the culprit.
Live like a rotter, die like a rotter. What? Toodle-pip! There is one man who won't let it slide. Edward Wales, a friend of the departed, makes repeated efforts to investigate the case himself before undertaking a more drastic approach. Wales organises a gathering of prominent community members and notable suspects. On a dark, spooky night, he locks them in an elegant drawing room and invites them to engage in a séance. They will contact the dead man's spirit, urging it to reveal the murderer, who Wales believes is in that very room. The night begins with light-hearted banter, as we are playfully teased with the supernatural elements. Is the medium legitimate, or are the skeptics correct in their disbelief? The answer goes back and forth, setting up a slight distrust in all participants. Once the seance occurs and the lights go out, predictably, there's another murder! Lugosi's policeman is brought in to solve the fresh stabbing, but ultimately works to uncover the original crime in turn. In all honesty, the 13th Chair is not the best that the genre has to offer. Saying that, it's not one to outright avoid or dismiss either. It is relatively light on action, which I think will bore most modern audiences. Outside of a few key scenes, Browning's direction retains the theatrical feel of the story's origins, with a stationary camera holding for long takes of characters waiting for their turn to speak. I can't complain too much, as it works for this type of film. But for those expecting more dynamic, varied camera work, maybe steer clear. It's Browning's first sound picture, and a new experience for the actors too. So, some talk too slow.
Ramadas, everything stay same here until the chief inspector he come.
And some talk way too fast.
Mr. Wales, I'm thoroughly exasperated. You have not only disobeyed the police orders, but you're becoming a pest. Careful, Mr. Wales. Now explain yourself.
There are also some awkward pauses. These aren't examples of building tension through silence, nor are they the actors absolutely missing their cue. It was an MGM practice to give projectionists time to change the reels. How thoughtful of them, but it's quite amusing watching now. Otherwise, there's much to compliment. The seances are the closest the film comes to having set pieces, and they do perk up your attention. Although, the medium's moaning is a little iffy.
I can't stand this! I can't stand it!
You and me both. Any of the ghostly situations are good fun, to be fair, including a nice motif of 1 knock for yes, 2 knocks for no.
Yes, yes.
One of the biggest reveals, which I won't spoil, is directly linked to sound, while the screen is doused fully in darkness. So it's an interesting utilisation of the new technology to full effect. They did release this film as a silent picture too. Not sure how that scene would have worked. Most of the characters are stock upper-class British individuals, but Wales' determination is magnetic, the inclusion of a thuggy adds an edge of danger, especially when demonstrating their weapons of choice, and the Irish medium is a scene stealer. The actress previously portrayed the role on stage, so she was well versed in the character's gleefully strange persona. However, yes, watching the film back now, Lugosi is the true draw. It's already a win from the off to see him as a protagonist, before the cinematic Dracula locked him into villainous typecasting for almost every picture afterwards. He clearly wants to make an impression, vying to be the standout performance here. He transforms what could be a typical police character into something more, with his intense demeanour, stern inquisitive brow, and a frequently deployed accusatory finger that even puts Harrison Ford to shame. He's kinda angry, impatient, even resorting to some strange methods if it means outing the truth. Also, if you're like me and enjoy imitating Lugosi as you're going about your daily chores, pissing off your spouse in the process, there are countless quotes in here you can add to your accented repertoire.
I could place them all for you.
If you'll be so kind. I see.
What do you want? Don't forget the swimming pool. Don't ever forget the swimming pool.
Helen?
Helen? So there are 2 Helens. 2 Helens.
So there were 2 Helens.
1 Helen? 2 Helens? I recommend The 13th Chair to those who are already big fans of the talent involved, but I probably wouldn't recommend it to casual viewers. It's a minor piece of horror history, Browning's first sound film, one of Lugosi's earliest substantial roles, and the pair's first collaboration together before they created a huge piece of horror history. And if none of that intrigues you, well, what if I told you the gowns were provided by Adrian? Well done, you magnificent chump.
Oh,